Well, halito wakana. Hello, friends. Chimichukma, how are you? Welcome back to Red Hoop Talk, the Association on the American Indian Affairs Native News and Talk Show on how we stay close to culture. I am your Choctaw and Cherokee hostess, Jennifer Robin. And I think, you guys, this week I'm going to come out of the closet. It's a different closet. So I try to give you guys my normal eyes, but I have a visual condition called Erlin syndrome, where it's really hard for me to read black on white. So I have my tinted glasses. You can't see me as well, but you guys, I look cool. And also, I just read better and feel better, right? We have to have lights. We're video, we're live. So that is my About Me announcement for the week. So, yes, I'm out. I was embarrassed. This is a live thing, a video that lasts forever. And I just want to come across with everything together, but I don't it. Okay. So this is the face from now on. I think my next round of glasses will be lighter, so you can still see like my cool eyeliner and stuff, but I can't hide it anymore, you guys. So that is my me. We have a great show. Daniel, I interviewed him, I want to say like almost a decade ago. But he's brilliant and he's sweet and his heart is awesome. His grandpa was a code talker, so we get to talk about history. And he's also a children's book. I think we're at 2 children's books. We'll have him clarify that for us. So, welcome to the program.
Oh man, I'm so excited to be here and to have a conversation with you again after a decade.
So, do you have a stoic engine man introduction you'd like to give our listeners and our watchers?
Oh man, my days of being stoic are over. But
Yeah, you got
my name
it.
is Daniel Vandever. I'm a children's book author. Have 3 children's books at the moment and a couple of early readers. So I've been at it for quite a while. But Irish and Schleg, Kyoani Bush is Chin. Irish Dasha Cheado Touchini Dashanella, Akut Ego Denashle. That's how I'm Navajo. Those are my clans, and just really excited to be here sharing my experiences and my history.
Well, you have some amazing history in your DNA. So I would like to start off this conversation honoring and talking about your grandpa, who was a World War II code talker. And Native Americans have the smallest population percentage, but one of the highest percentages for enlistment in our military. So let's start there. Who's your grandpa?
Yeah, man, it's like the
Wait,
pride of our family
aren't
right
you
there.
named out of him after him?
No, his name was Joe Vandever Sr. He was a code talker during World War II. Served from 1943 to 46. But he was elite Marine of World War II who used Navajo language to help in time of war. And so code talkers were called upon to develop a code to help keep people safe, to help divert supplies, to do all these necessary things you need to do in war. And he used his language to help facilitate a lot of that action. And so I think a lot of the reason why I became an author and why I developed an appreciation for words and language stemmed from my grandfather and the service he did back in World War II. I think there was over 400 code talkers who served, Navajo code talkers who had served, other tribes who also participated in that way. But I know the code talkers, especially this month, on the 14th, they had Navajo Code Talker Day and got to celebrate him, even though I think year round is something we really need to do in commemorating them and the service they provided to this country. Because like you said, Native Americans throughout the country are serving and giving themselves and their lives, their everything to this country and to our nation. So really proud of where I am and where I came from, all starting from my Nolly, Joe Vandever Sr.
So I don't know if you know this, but like, whose idea was it? Like, who's? I mean, because again, you're very just chill. Okay, where's the drum? This was World War. Okay,
Yeah.
World War. Everybody's fighting. So like, did one of the original code talkers or military men go, wait, why don't we use why don't we use native language? Like,
Yeah.
the government, like, we need something that nobody knows.
Yeah, it really came from the government. They were in a standstill in the Pacific. It was harsh fighting. We're really making progress. It's trench warfare, really, when you're out there. And so, really needed to get an edge. And just somebody who was in the military at the time had spent some time growing up on Navajo. I'm not sure if it was missionary or missionary work or whatever brought him to Navajo land, but he had that language and that knowledge of it. And that was the idea is we need a code. We need it to be unbreakable. Navajo is a hard language to learn. It's a hard language to speak. It takes glottals. It takes high tones. It takes all of these different things you need to do with your voice that is very observational too in how you describe things and how you label words and items and things of that nature. And so there's a lot of different ways that you could call one thing with two different words. And so through that, I think they hired, or not hired, but they recruited the original code talkers. I think it was 29 who came in and they helped develop the code, what things symbolized, what they represented, because it had to be quick, especially in warfare. It was often based off of the alphabet. And so if you're sending a code or coordinates, it was all off of words. Willitchi is red ant in Navajo, A, or Belasana, apple, two different words for the A. And piecing together all of these different words to develop codes to transmit messages in time of need. And so I think off of that original 29, they ended up having recruited over 400. And by the end of the war, I think they helped expedite its end in the advances they made. And so really crucial part of our history, not just for Navajo, but all American history, I think, and what they had contributed to our nation. And so
Yeah, we're not speaking German or Japanese, right?
No,
Because
not at all. Not at all. It'd be nice if we were all speaking Navajo, the
okay,
original in American language, but we'll get there.
but how do you, again, you can't go teach like a bunch of people Navajo, and then Navajo, like you said, having all these different like sounds and abilities. So how did they dumb it down to make it more phonetic? Because I was like thinking about you yesterday, and just again, this code talker stuff is awesome. But there was like a Navajo dictionary and training material of code talkers 1945, but that's like a few years after your Gramps, after Joe was up in it.
Yeah, and I think it led because it was never written down before. It was all oral.
So they didn't have a dictionary to go by and steal. Like I think like
No.
end of the 1800s, the Choctaw had a dictionary that was like published by some missionary group or whatever. Right. So somebody could buy that and take it and figure it out or whatever.
Yeah,
but y'all didn't have that at that point.
Yeah, it was all orally expressed and passed on from generation to generation. And I think that was one of the reasons why it was selected, is that there was really no trace of it outside of some missionaries or people who had contact with Navajos throughout history. But I think that was one of the benefits of what made it work, is that it was able to be developed based off of conversation and what was always spoken. And great thing about it was throughout the entire war, it was never cracked. The code was never broken. And it was led to some problems down the road. They ended up keeping the code secret. So after the code talkers returned from war, nobody really knew what they did. They didn't get the hero's welcome. They wanted to protect it in case they had to use it again. And a lot of people had to deal with their traumas, their problems returning home from war without any type of recognition or help that came from it. And so there's a lot of blessings that came from it, but then a lot of problems that resulted as well. But I think as part of that code and as part of what it was developed, they ended up developing the alphabet, the letters, and then had the written form afterwards. So
it's just awesome because you got to grow up with living history, like a very integral part of living history. So,
and it's crazy because it's disappearing so fast. I believe there's only about 2 code talkers still living today. Thomas Begay and Peter McDonald. And so out of the 400, only two still remaining. It's one of those things that is leaving us, but it's something that I think will always stay with us, that history. And so growing up, it was always something that was important in the home. It's complex history because things that followed, such as boarding school and things that chipped away at our identity and who we are, really attacked at the core of our culture, our language. But I think because of how strong it was within our grandparents and the intergenerational knowledge that was shared over time, it's still spoken by many. But complex history, something that's really kind of something that we're dealing with today.
But they're like,
Even with,
assimilate. We need you to assimilate. Oh, wait, not yet. Okay, we're done using you. Go assimilate.
and it's crazy because you look at my own family history. My grandfather was using Navajo language in time of war to help save lives and advance American initiatives across the world. But at the same time, one generation removed from him, my father was being punished for speaking that same language in school. And then one generation removed from him is me. And I often grew up with my dad saying, it's good to know Navajo, but go off and learn English. Go learn the Western ways, because if you're going to be successful in this world, that's what you need to learn. And so very, very complex history and things that we're dealing with today as a nation, as a society, but something that we need to address. And it's a big reason why I got into writing and writing the stories that I do.
Well, let's transition to the get to know you section because I'm just getting all hot and bothered. And because I get like I was raised like what your dad gave you. Like, this is who we are, but it doesn't work. So go forth and educate, but know who you are, but not too much, or don't be too, like it's a
Yeah,
weird
yeah.
place for our little generation to be in because I know that it was out of like protection, not believing that to assimilate is better, but it's like your life is going to be harder if you don't just ABCD with them.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a delicate dance for sure, and it's been not just with my families, but whole communities, whole nations, not only in the U.S. but across Canada and the world, of people who went through that. And you think about the trauma that comes with being told not to value who you are, not to value your language, and that's wrong. This is the way. It led to a lot of problems within our society that I think we still struggle with. I've seen it in my home, but I've seen it in my community. I've seen it in my workplace. This mentality that kind of comes from that period of education, and so it's something that we definitely need to address. But how do you do that if it's kind of a taboo in a sense, and that we leave that stuff in the past? We don't talk about it. It happened. We need to move forward. But I think in order to move forward collectively, how do we heal from that so we
Well,
can do
there's this, why aren't you over it yet? There's not, that's the question that's usually posed to us, not what hurts and what do we need to all collectively help heal, right? It's just get over it.
and they act like it's distant past, distant history, but my dad is still living today. I'm still feeling the repercussions of what he
Yes.
went through, as he is too. So this is people who are still walking among us who are dealing with this history. It's very recent, and so it's hard to get over that type of thing. Or how do you brush that apart?
Well, how do you get over some kind of traumas of being used or displaced or seen as an expendable resource? How do you get over something that's still happening,
Yeah, and I
right?
think,
Like, so
yeah,
how do you forgive something that is like still beating you? I don't.
and I think it's tough. I think you do it physically, or you do it with your words or your expressions. And thankfully, we've been restrained enough to do it with our words and expression, because it's had an impact.
Yes, and even though you and I didn't go to boarding school, I feel like we're still like part of that boarding school survivor.
Yeah, most definitely.
You
And like
know,
I said, I see it in the workplace. There's reasons why you go and you hear things like, "This is how it's always been done," or "You're not doing it the right way," or and I think that's what's kind of troubling in our society today, is because what we face is very difficult, complex problems in our communities, what we deal with in regards to unemployment or poverty or educational attainment, things that kind of stem from that history and from that mentality, challenges that we face. It's everywhere, but we need to be able to address it. And so that's what I try to do when I write, when I try to work within my community, is how do we address this community so we are this history so we could heal and then move forward. And I think that's something that we have to do collectively. We can't really leave anybody behind, because we're all facing and feeling the repercussions of that history.
Yes. So let's transition into, you mentioned a lot of your wanting to write was because of your grandpa. So
Yeah.
let's transition and like what, how, why,
Well, my grandpa was a
and
code talker.
yeah, and the what, how, why of like why, I don't know, just kind of why you are here now because of these, ancestors.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like I said, my grandfather was a code talker, so whenever he spoke, we tended to listen, especially when he talked about words and the power of education and things of that nature. Because who would know more about the power of words and language than a code talker? On top of that, he was also a medicine man, and whenever I go around and speak to schools and talk to kids, I always cite him as the inspiration for me becoming a writer, because he used to always say, your words are powerful. Uh, our words are powerful. Um, and so we have to use them in that way. And so I always had that kind of in my head growing up, is that if I'm able to use my words, my language, I'm able to do things perhaps as great as he did in order to benefit myself, my family, my community. And so I think it's kind of an honor to him in being able to use my words and my language and being able to reach out to communities to talk about these histories. Not only the bad things, but then also the beauty of things that have allowed us to be here today. I think our culture, our language, our community, our sense of family, our humor is medicine in a sense, and that's something that we need to share with the world. And as troubled of a history and as tough as we've had it as indigenous people, I think everybody's feeling that these days. And I think that the beauty of what we've experienced, the beauty of what we have to offer, can heal a lot of people too. And so I feel like, just like my grandpa, it's a gift that we owe the world. We are the Ne, the five-fingered people, and we're here to, lend ourselves to everyone in humanity and the world. And so that's what I try to do. I think that's the inspiration of my grandfather, being a code talker, but then also a medicine person, is how do we use our words? How do we use our language for good? He used to say you could make somebody's day or break it by the words that come out of your mouth. So choose wisely what you say, don't just be putting anything out there. And so that's how I try to live my life.
That is beautiful. I don't know how to fight, so I fight with my mouth. I know how mean I can be, right? People
Yeah.
think I know how to fight. Oh my gosh, no. Okay. Um, but it is true. Like there's power in these. I mean, I see the effect how you can make somebody's day or break somebody's day. It's your choice.
Yeah.
But do we owe the world anything though? Like that's no, but that's such a beautiful thing. But they put stuff out there and then the new agers ruin it or people misinterpret it or they take it as their own and start speaking for us, right?
Yeah.
As there's something. So I just admire. I don't know if I'll ever be in that place
Yeah.
where I'm gonna give my health healing medicine secret songs to the greater world. Like
Yeah.
my social media, I think you're the same way. There's so much cool stuff and amazing things that we do that do not ever see the light of a camera,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is,
And I think we find it in our own way, whether that's behind the camera or out there in public or in whatever way we
yeah.
choose or find. I just think that the stakes are so high, and you see it when people hijack what we're doing, or they twist what their intent is, and the impact is not only on different people, but globally on the world, on nature, the environment, and you see all the repercussions of it happening today. So I don't know, how do you find a way to lend beauty to all that ickiness and at least bring some type of hope, at least bring some type of positive approach to what's going on, because it's not really going too great out there, and you're seeing the negative backlash in the environment, in communities, in everywhere, really.
Yes. Okay. So after we do our interview, I pull out little segments that end up on social medias. So
Mhm.
as we talk, I make these little notes of times, with my interviews. Maybe there's 2 or 3.
Okay.
You have 20 different spots. Oh, this is good. Oh, this gave me goosebumps. Oh, this. Like, we're not going to be able to do clips because people just have to watch this whole interview. So let's do a promo real quick. And I'm going to try not to dump all my fears and anxieties on you for our next segment. I promise. All right, we'll be back.
Join the Everything Back movement and purchase a Cultural Sovereignty Protector shirt today. A Cultural Sovereignty Protector is an advocate who is working to create a world where diverse Native cultures and values are lived, protected, and respected. Cultural sovereignty means having control over those things that make us who we are as Native peoples. Everything Back is our movement to return those things that make us who we are so that we can heal. Purchasing one of our Native designed limited edition shirts demonstrates your commitment to human rights and equality. Visit indian-affairs.org to check out all of the colors and styles in stock today.
Everything back. It's so cute. My camera guy, editor, BFF guy pal, he just texted me, I love him. Because I was like, you have to watch as a veteran. Pay attention. But no, so I feel like we had this recent Nepal flood that they're thinking a glacier fell. This is not an overly developed country. So I feel like this poor country has suffered the effects of these changes by industrialized countries like America. Like, look, Bill Nye told me 40 something years ago about this and warned us, and nobody has listened. So I'm kind of seeing like your grandpa's sense of we have to put it out there because it isn't about us. Like, I'm getting that.
Yeah.
But part of me is still like, you don't deserve it. I'm going to wait for this all to burn so we can function as sane people once again.
Yeah, that's the mindset I was in probably about a decade ago, actually. I was like, let's just let everything burn and maybe people come to light, and that's the spark we need. But still, people remained in the dark and willingly in the dark. And it's just like, we got to do more. And so it's very terrible. Like you said, it's often the people who leave the smallest carbon footprint or who are feeling the impacts of these big, the craziness that's happening. And it's not right. There's an imbalance in the world. And so to me, I just figured, how do we bring the world back into balance? I think it's by evening out the bad with the good. And that's a big part of Navajo philosophy, is finding that balance in the world of the Hojo. It's putting the good medicine out. And sometimes it takes that bad to bring it back into balance too, so it's just finding that sweet spot. So it's a tricky thing for sure.
I feel like you guys are the original Jedi. You know what I mean? Like, everything you're saying is so like, I get it. I
Oh,
get it. And unfortunately, 1985, watching Empire Strikes Back, I was like, all right, Vader, I get it. Dark side, let's go. So but no, like, it is very easy to be stuck in anger or just wipe your hands and step back and just like, again, right? So how have you come to light? Like, please catch me up on this past decade of enlightenment and walking the Jedi path.
Oh man. Well, my Jedi path started when I came home, actually. I spent a lot of my education and my youth off reservation. I grew up in middle Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, actually, North County, St. Louis. Um, in my introduction, I'm half Irish and I'm half Navajo. And so growing up, I grew up in North St. Louis, and every summer would come home because this is where my life is. This is where my roots are. This is the land I'm from. And it took returning home to really get back into the things and get reconnected to the land and get reconnected to the language see the need for everything. And so I think, like many people who leave the reservation, always had ambitions of coming home and making it better, not only for myself, my family, my community, but for the entire Navajo Nation. And so I started working in higher education. For 10 years, I worked at a tribal college and university called Navajo Technical University at Crown Point. And I dedicated my life to hopefully improving quality of life on Navajo through higher education. I think TCUs are a special thing in that they provide pathways to higher education, but higher education that is strongly rooted in culture and language and identity. And I figured if we were to improve the conditions on Navajo or any reservation, really, it requires layers of work. You know, you're not only tackling education, but you're tackling housing, you're tackling language revitalization, you're tackling economic development. And what better medium do you have to do that than higher ed? And so that's what I did for 10 years. And one of the realizations I had when working there is that we can get students to the university and participating in higher ed. The hard part is keeping them there and helping them finish to get their degree. What I noticed is that a lot of the students were stopping out, not graduating on time, leaving in a worse condition often than when they started, because now they had debt, higher education debt. And it often led to that point because the students weren't able to pass certain courses, particularly developmental courses in English, writing, math. And so these students would be able to pass all of their construction tech programs, their engineering courses, but if they couldn't pass
Algebra.
basic algebra or basic English, it was all for nothing, because then that was the main thing that they needed to get to their higher level courses. And so for me, I figured you had to start earlier, and that's when I started writing children's books. That's when my path home really kind of took shape, and that if we were to make these big changes in improving quality of life, we had to be able to have our kids be able to read and be literate. And so that's when I started writing children's books and diving into the world of how do we address these problems earlier on.
Okay, so book number 1.
Yeah.
Why and what is it?
So the book number 1 actually came out in 2017. Oh my gosh, almost a decade ago. It was titled Fall in Line, Holden. It was a story about a boy whose wild imagination helps him fall out of line as his class is walking from class to recess. And as he falls out of line, looking at the beauty of the everyday, his teacher reminds him to fall in line, Holden. And so he would get in trouble for his imagination kind of wandering, which was definitely an experience I had as a kid growing up. But I also was able to make the relation to my father being in boarding school and being told to fall in line and to act a certain way and to not speak your language. And I think a lot of those things that I experienced growing up were very similar, though not as harsh as what he's experienced. I grew up in the No Child Left Behind period of education. I grew up in the standardized tests period of education, where you had to meet these state standards, national standards. And that often resulted in cuts to the creative things that I loved: art, physical education, music. And so the whole story was about how do you go through these education systems while still being true to yourself and not letting that spark being taken away. And so with that first book, I wanted to speak to everyone, anyone really who has a kid in the education system, and to not being able to lose your sense of self or that sense of creativity that we all need, I think, in today's world, but also being able to speak to that period of boarding school era education that wasn't always talked about growing up. Those conversations didn't really happen. It wasn't really until I told the book that wrote the book that my dad started talking about it, and then going to communities, hearing it from other people. And there was good, there was bad. I've run into people who say, boarding school saved my life. If I didn't know how to do chores or duties. I wouldn't be able to clean apartments or have some type of trade skill today that is putting
Mhm.
food on the table. But at the same time, there's generations of kids who are, like I said, punished for speaking their language and being who they are. That's had lasting impacts on our community today. So, with that first book, that's what I really wanted to do, was to be able to address that history, while also being able to address literacy concerns within our community, to help our kids read, write, to prepare them for higher levels of education. And
Okay,
so,
but how do you bring culture? I mean, I love education. I love learning. Like in another life, I'd be an astrobiologist,
oh
right?
man,
I'm all about just I love learning, right? This whole world is interesting. Science is amazing,
mm,
right? There's scanning electron microscope pictures that I want to decorate my house with because like there's just some gorgeous viruses and diatoms out there, right?
oh man,
So I I love it, but again, this is a colonized system, right? This is a
yeah,
colonized type system that goes back to like the Roman era. So
yeah,
how do you bring culture into this colonized thing, right? Like
yeah.
I don't
Well, I think
there's
I
so
think
many
that's
classes I hated and didn't want to do, but I did them because I had to because I was hungry enough for that degree, right? So I
right.
get why people drop out when it gets hard or stupid,
Hmm.
but it's still also this perception and same thing like with a lot of religions. It's a colonized mindset. What are you doing? You shouldn't be there. You shouldn't be there.
Hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of it is based on what TCUs are doing, is just showing that this has always been with us, and that these systems and these colonized frameworks are just really kind of adapting to what we've always been doing. They're just putting
Okay.
in these benchmarks and other things that they have to use for assessment purposes, but that's always been with us. Science has always been within us. And it's just realizing and being able to relate to those in the ways that we educate, in the ways we learn. It's taking kids out of the classroom and putting them in the environment. It's taking walks and learning about the traditional plants and the stars and the land, and all of these things that are innate in our own culture, but then frame it in this new system of learning. And so I think traditionally it's always been our way or the highway. And I think TCUs and people who are working in that space, and especially in tribal communities, are finding that balance again, that kind of hajo I was talking about, with the bad or the good, the Western with the traditional. um, it's all there. You can't get rid of them. They interact with one another in
And you
different
don't
ways.
have to choose one or the other.
You don't have to choose one or another. It's just finding the balance between each, and that comfort zone. And so I don't know. It's something that I think we're still struggling with today. We're still trying to figure it out. But there's more of us who are aware of it and are bringing the traditional side of it into these conversations, that are bringing that balance back into play. And
Well,
so,
and we come from people that were hurt by education.
yeah, and
Well,
it's
they
weird.
were hurt while getting educated. So the thought of like continuing education and continuing to be hurt, like I can totally see why. Like, after high school, they just found something to do because the thought of more education probably was painful.
And that's one of the things I struggle with as a children's book author. I was like, man, I'm writing these books to help kids read, but if you look at our history, my dad talks about the very first book everyone was introduced to was Fun with Dick and Jane. And that was the very first thing that everyone was introduced to: Dick, Jane, Puff, Spot, those characters. And when he would read, if they got it wrong or they weren't reading it right, they would get whacked on the head with a ruler. And if they were doing it really bad, they would turn that ruler sideways so the thin part hit them and it thumped even harder. And so you have that history into reading. That's always what's been with us. And how do you then push it within this new age? I think it's finding that balance in different ways. My second book, Horizon, is a wordless picture book, and it kind of breaks that mold of, all right, you need to read this structured book, and here's the words, here's how you read it in order. I think the beauty of wordless books is that you're able to tell it however you choose. You're able to bring your own language or culture into the story, your own experiences. And it makes it something that is more in tune with our history of oral storytelling. And so I don't know. I think it's a play of how you not only write it, but how you work with it within your community, and finding that sweet zone and that balance. And so it's that complex history that we're talking about, and I think that Dick and Jane experience is a perfect example.
So mid 90s, we're shifting gears here because I can't stop thinking about it, which means I'm psychically getting told to talk about it. So early 90s, there's a big hantavirus outbreak on your res.
Oh yeah.
CDC came in, people died, and they're trying to trace us. They're crunching numbers. Like 6 months later, one of the elders came forward and said, yeah, when it rains a lot, we get a lot of fruit from certain trees, and then it attracts a lot of mice or rats or whatever that causes a hantavirus.
Mm-hmm.
So then CDC went, but there's already a science in place of realizing cause and effect in the natural world. You mentioned looking at the stars. It wasn't like native people just looked up and went, oh, that's pretty, right?
Yeah.
And then moved on with their lives. We were watching and observing and stuff. So I'm feeling better about the future and allowing that balance.
Yeah, it'd just be
Right.
nice if they caught up a little bit sooner.
Yes,
Why we're having to argue for all these years, even talking about crossing the Bering Strait, and now they're discovering footprints that predated whatever they thought prior to. And so, that's one of the crazy things about having to justify our way of knowing, is that it's innate into who we are. It dates back to at least our sense of the creation of the world came directly from the holy people. And so these aren't theories, these are hypotheses. It's something that's always been with us. And we're the original stewards of the land. You'd think that that knowledge would mean something. And I think slowly people are finding out, okay, maybe they do know what they're talking about. But it's been quite the process.
Okay, so I do a little bit of documentary work, and I've done radio forever. So in some of my previous works, I felt like if a native person was talking about something, I have to run out and find somebody with a master's or PhD to validate what they said, right? Because people didn't seem to listen to our ideas or philosophies or sciences or methods until somebody else said it or wrote it down or wrote a whole book about it and cashed in and never gave us any money back or whatever, right? There's this, I feel like I had to cite my source. Oh, I can't, because we're native and we're oral history. So I got to find somebody that did a book, right? Or published a word about it. And this little project I'm working on now with the new consulting producer, she was the first one to say they are the experts.
Yeah.
Right. So we're talking about land stewardship. One of the subjects said something, and I said to my camera guy editor, you need to go find proof of this. Where's the document? We can't believe that she said conservation involved deliberately removing natives from the land. Right. So it was such a shocking statement that I was like, oh, nobody's going to believe this or think we're melodramatic until I find some document that says it. It's insane.
Yeah, especially when you think about who those sources were and how they got to it. Often it was through translators, what was lost in that translation. Often it was misinterpreted from perspective. And so that's the kind of crazy thing about all of this, knowledge.
I'm also just wondering if us being part Irish is the crazy and a lot of just being crazy. You know what I mean?
Maybe. I don't know.
Because them Irish women ain't quiet or demure or mindful either. Neither are them Choctaw ladies. So I just figured, you know what? I got the 4 bases of DNA, and then there's a 5th, which is C for crazy, right? That's what I got going on.
Hey, we all need a little crazy.
A whole lot of emotional mutation. So back to Horizon. I love the idea because we have museums and art and artists and these paintings, even music. These things inspire what we think it makes us feel.
Yeah.
And we don't allow spaces for that. Right. To just, what does this mean to you? We're looking for we're supposed to feel this, or this means this. And so I love that idea of just sitting in a space, allowing yourself to react to something.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the beauties of picture books. It's the pairings of words with pictures. And I think that's why it's so impactful for early emergent readers, is that if they're struggling with the words, they always have the pictures to rely on. And when you have a wordless picture book, it allows the creative space for the imagination to roam, allows the creative space for you to insert yourself into the narrative, to bring your own experiences, to bring rich detail to what you're seeing. And it really kind of helps, I think, educators or parents when they're reading with kids meet them where they are rather than having the kids have to learn, this is a sentence, this is how you structure it into a paragraph, into a story. I think when you take down that wall, it allows for two-way learning. And oftentimes when you have kids reading a story like that, the parents will often learn from them and how they view the story too. And so I just think there's a lot of beauty that comes from the creativity, the space that allows you to roam and to explore. Scarf really represents the intergenerational strength we have within our families, from the storytelling, from the sharing of cultures, from everything that's included in that. And I think that story was really written because it's wordless, to speak to the voiceless, voiceless within our homes, voiceless within our communities, voiceless within in our classrooms too. I think one of the benefits of going around and being an author and having Fall in Line Holden is that it was great. I got to go and read with kids and get them excited, and they got to yell Fall in Line Holden and act like a teacher. But I always noticed that there was a small segment of students who were hesitant to join because of the words and because of the story. And so in writing the second book, Horizon, having it wordless, it allowed for more opportunities for me to engage those students and bringing them into the story. What do you think about that? What do you see on this page? And oftentimes you'd find kids who had something really valuable to gain. In Horizon, it's a story about a girl with her grandmother. And so she doesn't live in a traditional home with two parents. She lives with a grandmother. And so there's kids who live with grandparents that could bring that experience into the story, and sharing it with the class and having that spotlight on them. And so I think that was one of the things that I really liked about Horizon, is that it gave more voice to people who didn't always have that space.
You're so deep and such a good dude.
Oh man, thank you.
I love it. Like, well, not a lot of us spend time in our daily lives thinking about like children we don't know or aren't responsible for and their experience in the world.
Yeah.
You
And, and it's kind of a weird experience for me because I started writing before I had kids.
See, yes.
Uncle, and I kind of wanted that for my nieces and nephews. And it was only in the past 4 years, I have a 4 and 2-year-old at home, that I really see the value of really spreading that, not only to my kids, but everyone, and seeing the value of what it means to have story in the home and the interactions you have now as a parent. What greater conversation could you have with the kid sitting in your lap over a book, talking about boarding school history or wordlessness, voicelessness and community. You could do that with picture books, and it leads to very fruitful conversations that I think benefit not only like my kids, like I say, but also me as a parent too. So
you're so good. All right, let's go to a promo real quick, and then I want to talk about the third book. And I don't know how long to keep you. You said a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, so talking to an adult, even though I'm not all the way an adult, maybe like a nice break for you. So yeah. We'll be back.
A 10,000-mile ride across Turtle Island in just 2 weeks, the Hoka Motorcycle Challenge raises awareness about the realities Native peoples face and inspires supporters to learn, engage, donate, and take action for justice.
Okay, so when was Horizon in between kids or before kids? Because you wrote your third book like before kids or after kids. I want to transition into that, because I think your next book should be a book on like how to not make your auntie crazy. That would be a nice topic. We should discuss more. Stay out of my purse, right?
Horizon was written in 2021, and so it was when my 4-year-old was in the oven baking, getting ready, um, and so it was when he was on the way, and then and so it was published. It was fortunate enough to be named the best picture book of 2022 through the American Indian Youth Literature Award,
Dang,
which I
dude.
think which was it was amazing because I ended up self-publishing that story. Fall in Line Holden was published through Salina Bookshelf out of Flagstaff, Arizona. But for the second book, I really wanted to take hold of it and do it myself. Since we are in the age of tech and this digital world, it's possible to do that as someone who creates. I had author illustrated Fall in Line Holden, so I knew it was possible to do it myself. And I had a message that I think needed to be carried, that didn't need to be diluted through editors and publishers and boards and things of that nature. And so I ended up self-publishing that story and kind of took a leap of faith. I know a lot of people say you need to be publishing with the big five or with somebody who has the resources to get it out there. But I knew that when I did fish it around and presented it to a couple of big agencies, one of the immediate feedback was that, well, we need to see words in here. How are people going to be able to relate to what's happening on Navajo in middle Missouri or on the East Coast, or how they're going to understand these cultural elements? And my stance was, well, it's about a shepherd looking after sheep. It's biblical, right? Anyone could understand the story, but I think if you were to take away the wordless aspect of it, you take away the power of everything we just discussed. You take away the benefit of what you give the reader in being able to express themselves in the story. And so I ended up self-publishing it, and paid off because it ended up getting recognized through the American Indian Library Association and was awarded in that way. So it's taken me a lot of different places, and it's allowed me to speak to a lot of different communities everywhere from Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community in Arizona to Eastern Band of Cherokee Nation in North Carolina. So from coast to coast, I've been around speaking on that story, and actually helped me get into my third book too, which I did self-publish, which is titled We Weave. It's a story about a boy who helps his grandmother sell a rug in order to purchase a computer when school transitions to virtual learning. And so that book was published in 2024 and is actually dedicated to my son who was in the womb when Horizon was being written. And so, yeah, so that's his book. It's a book about technology and how do we embrace that. It came from my son hacking into my phone. At 2 years old, he was already able to get into my phone and get to the camera. And so whenever I go and present, I show pictures of thousands of foreheads and nostrils and his sister and walls and everything, because at 2 years old, our kids are already able to access the phone in order to get to cameras. He knows to hold it up to my face if he wants to get to YouTube and watch a show, And I think if our kids are being introduced to this technology at such an early age, we need to be able to find that balance again and not losing ourselves. So it's really a story about finding balance between the traditional ways of weaving Navajo rugs, but then also using this new technology to get ourselves out there into the public.
Well, and to connect each other, right?
And to connect.
So I think that's a very important book for right now.
Yeah.
Because even as adults, right, we struggle with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I know how to live without it because I'm an 80s baby. Like I still call people on the telephone on their birthday and like use stamps, right? But even as a middle-aged woman, there's still this, you haven't looked out the window in 3 hours. You know what I mean? Like, why are you still holding this thing? Or I don't know. So the earlier they can, and then too, like all that defining of self through social media and comparing ourselves. That's why I think these lawsuits just went off the way they did, because it if you're not staring at millions of people scroll, 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 and comparing yourself to 9,000 images a day, that's got to negatively affect you.
Yeah. And it's crazy because I know when I was growing up, people would ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? The answer was always a baseball player or a firefighter or one of these traditional jobs. And you ask kids these days, and it's like, I want to be a YouTuber, I want to be a streamer, I want to be a podcaster, which is fine. You know, you could do that. But I always say, you know, who's going to watch you if you're doing that? What's your it? You know, what do you know? And so oftentimes you have to blend a traditional talent of what makes you unique and what you do in order for people to follow you. And so how do you find that balance? And just like with the good and the bad and tech and tradition and you know, I think we have to find that balance. It's kind of tough because now our kids are so used to this technology that you can't just take it away.
And it also pacifies them. It's become, you know, a babysitter. I need a break. Here's my phone.
Oh yeah, I know that too often, more than I should, but I think it's about finding the balance. And you know, you're gonna get kids out, but how do you maybe use technology to supplement that interest? Whether it's getting into AR and getting them out there. I know Pokemon Go was one of those things that blended technology with getting kids active and getting out in the community and doing that
Not
type of
me. I
stuff.
got like 10 unhatched eggs that will never
Oh
hatch,
my
right?
gosh.
Because they're 10-kilometer ones. They're just gonna live there.
Yeah, but I think what we need to do is find that balance between them and find that sweet spot. And I think it's about excess, not having too much excess of anything in our lives, and how do we bring that balance to our youth and to ourselves, really.
And you know, language to me is kind of the linchpin to culture, because so much of our thought process or connection to the environment comes through a word. Like here, woodpeckers palatatat or whatever, right? Like there's a sound that mimics an owl's like uhumi, right? And it's something that mimics the
Mm,
environment the word came from, right? So there's so much culture carried in language, and it's the hardest to do because we don't all just live around a bunch of Choctaws to Halito at 10 times a day,
mm-hmm.
right? Like, so how are you going to make language easier for your kids and for us? Like, it's got to be a book, right? Like, you just got to force, because there is no babble. There is no, you know, it's such a big thing. Like, I over respect, even if they're mean to me, our language carriers, right? Like,
Mm.
there's so much in that.
Yeah, and within my books, I try to have little nuggets or little bridges for you to have those opportunities to do that with your kids. I do have words embedded into the stories, a lot of it kinship terms, calling your grandmother Shanala or Shimasana, Shiyaj, my little one. Um, Within my text, I have those little things with little dictionaries and things to help readers if you need it. But I think also being able to have the space for parents to get creative in doing that. And fall in line, Holden, I just did a reading with my son in his pre-K class, and one of the scenes is a music class, and instead of them being in single file singing in choir, those music notes turn into birds that are flying around, and that's what Holden sees different as he's walking to class. And so I'll take the moment to say, all right, let's take a moment and count how many birds there are together. So we're pointing and we're counting. Let's do it in Spanish now. Uno, dos, tres. Now in Navajo. And so I think that's one of the things I try to put into my stories, is little opportunities like that where you could say, all right, here's where they're using kinship terms. What would you call the grandma in this instance? Or what would you call the kid? What do you call me? Or, you know, and so there's a lot of opportunities that I think, again, kind of break down the walls or the structure of how books are supposed to be read, and leaving space for you to get creative and bring that language or those cultural elements into the story. And I think with Horizon, it's easy because, like I said, there's no words. It's a picture book. You're able to just kind of freely speak about it. But then also in my other stories, I provide little opportunities to do that too. And so if it's not in the story itself, it's in back matter, where after you're done reading it, as a parent, you want to explore more and learn about the symbolism behind certain elements of the story, then you could do that. But I think including those is something I consciously do in order for that type of conversation to happen, because these books are so powerful. I think children's books are for everybody. People might be hearing this and like, oh man, children's books, I'm past that, but I think these are tools for lifelong learning that anyone of any age can use.
So in Navajo Tech, are you guys allowed to take Navajo as your foreign language? Because I cheated and took ASL because I already could read and write it. Right. So,
Yeah.
and I'm already flapping with my hands everywhere. So, sign was a good fit for me. Are you guys A, allowed to take it as your foreign language? And B, would it be super weird if like one of your Irish ginger cousins showed up and like spoke more Navajo than you like that? Oh my God, that would make me crazy.
Oh man, with technology today, I think that's not out of the question.
Or should I say our ginger Irish cousin showing up just like speaking more Injun than us?
They do offer that, and I know that they've made attempts, because certain scholarships, I know if you were to apply for it coming out of high school, a scholarship requires a language course.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that they fought in the past to have Navajo language courses as a part of that requirement. I don't think it was always checked off as something that would count towards you being able to qualify for that scholarship. And so I know they advocate and really push for that to be included in those types of scholarships. I know it's offered at the university. And I think what's kind of cool about a tribal college is even when you have non-Navajo, non-tribal members work there, they often want to make that extra effort in order to take those classes to better connect with their students. And so they will enroll and partake in a lot of the things we're discussing in order to better connect with their students. And so I think that's one of the beauty of higher ed and TCUs in general, is that it's a place where people who are in it for the right reason go and they do it in a respectful way to go learn, not to appropriate or to dominate, but to better integrate themselves.
Or they know a few words and have a pair of earrings, so they think they get our experience now.
Oh man, yeah. Well, that happens more often.
I had a Sac State teacher ask me, she said, "Oh, you're beautiful. What's your ethnicity?" And I was like, that's weird, but I need the grade from her. So I was like, "Oh, I'm Native and Irish." "Oh, I have a Native heart." She said that to me. So I just sit through the whole semester being taught by a woman who's got a Native heart.
Oh my.
Her heart sounds Native, right? So again, I didn't boarding school, but it took me 5 times to finally pass U.S. history in college.
Wow.
5 times, because I was like, this one semester I taught with the teacher and then just dropped it. One semester I was like, I can't regurgitate the lines in an essay as I just dropped, right? Like, it was not easy for me to have to learn their idea of my people's experience, and I'm dependent on them for a grade, right?
Yeah.
So I have still some higher ed trauma from, right? Like,
yeah.
But now I'm proud of those 5 attempts, of those F's and W's. I'm like, you're damn right. 5 times, like, couldn't colonize this cow.
Yeah. Good. It's inspiration for other people, and then you here using this outlet, it's education for other people to know and to grow and learn from it as well. And so we all have our space, we all have our path to learning, and it's what's best for us. I think is the best path to go on.
So I have your website displayed here, the longest website. Okay. South of Sunrise Creative.com. So is that the best way? Because I'm kind of imagining people going, oh snap, he's an author, let's get him out to our school or our area, or I want books. Is this like the best hub for you, South of Sunrise Creative.com?
Yeah, that's the best hub. You can find me on social media under Daniel W. Vandever on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram, TikTok, whatever it might be. Throw in the hashtag Horizon. I'll most likely link to one of my videos or posts, and you can find me. But that's the website. I'm really glad that you mentioned not just to purchase books, but also to invite me to speak to schools, libraries, museums, higher education institutions. I talk to everybody, as I mentioned. I think these stories are for everybody of every age. And so from cradle board to college and beyond, I think that's just as powerful, is not only having the books and writing them and getting them out to the public, but then having somebody like me go out and speak to the youth.
But it makes it real,
It
right?
makes it real, but then it also lets people say, hey, if he's doing that, that's something that I could do too. It lets them know that it's possible. And there's not many male children's book authors too. So
Really?
yeah, not very many of us. And so I think seeing a guy with long hair with braids is something that our kids need to see, especially because a lot of kids are being bullied for having long hair, and that's a problem within our school systems, on and off reservation too. And so if you have more people out there that reflect who our kids and our youth are, the more they take pride in who they are as well. And so that's my big thing, is if people could see that I've done it, if that guy could do it, then maybe I can too. And so inviting me out and doing readings. I do free online virtual readings, especially to Indigenous communities, but I also travel as well. So any way that I could get out there, I think these are the types of conversations that need to happen. We're in that complex world with all of these major problems.
Yes.
We can only address them and address them if we're talking about it and we're having dialogue and discussions. So I'm always happy to be out there doing that type of work.
I'm getting goosebumps. Your grandparents, you are living that balance, right? You're working in education, but you're also extremely creative, right? You are this to me. I don't know. I wish I had an example like you when I was younger, to see a healthy, happy balance of existing in this colonized world, but still being close to who we are. I feel I always have to stay X amount of feral, just so they know, right? Just so they know it took me 5 times to pass history.
Yeah.
But I didn't get a chance. And I know there's a lot of me's out there that really felt a tug of war the whole time.
Yeah.
And I think that you're just that really beautiful example of not feeling that tug of war, but just being yourself.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. And likewise, you talk about your journey and what you've experienced, but you're doing it here on this podcast. And I think that representation across all mediums is needed. We're now in children's books. We're now in podcasts. We're now in the NFL. There's Navajo who made the teams. We're on streaming channels and on movies. And I think the more of us that are out there, the better it is for all of us, and for the youth especially. And so I'm so proud of what you do. I follow you as well. And I'm just so thankful to be here to share these ideas and exchange these experiences, because I think this is where change happens. This is the medicine that we need. And so I'm really thankful for what
tell the wife and kids, let's go to Ireland.
Oh man, I was supposed to go before COVID with my mom.
I'm not I've been to your desert, right? I've been to my swamps. Let's go to Ireland.
Yeah.
What if we have one of us has to have a castle somewhere back? See, unfortunately, my Irish immigrant family, we picked our own cotton. So I just come from 30 generations of being poor on both sides. I want to where's my castle, Danny V?
Your castle.
Or can I live in yours? Come on. What if we end up super Irish, aristocratic? You know what I mean? What if we got some fancy ass Irish blood in there?
Hey, well, people are always claiming to be a lineage of
princesses
and royalty.
A Navajo princess. Yes. Oh my God. Okay, so I'm an Irish duchess.
Yeah.
This is my cousin, Duke of the Desert.
Duke Daniel.
Yep. I love it. Yeah. So let's do that. Okay, you did the native stuff. You work in, tech school. Everybody knows their language. Let's go to Ireland.
Yeah, it's been a dream of mine. I have about 3 years left on my passport, so I need to start using it and get some stamps in there. So just let me know.
Okay, I will babysit. I will hold bags. I'll buy my own ticket, but I just don't want to go alone and be weird. So yes. Let's get to messaging.
I
Well, I
love it.
so appreciate you being here. South of sunrisecreative.com is the best place to connect. He's on all the socials. I have the socials. I just don't remember the passwords for half of them. So I haven't Twittered in a decade because but yes, South of Sunrise Creative, thank you so much for
Yep.
being with us today. Um, I don't know. Whenever there's multiple toddlers in the house, I never know what to say. Like, remember COVID, stay safe out there or
Mhm.
whatever. Like, I just, only thing that comes to mind is like, good luck.
Oh
You
man,
know
I'm
what
in
I
the
mean? Like, I
trenches.
don't know. I'll be praying for you.
They just returned to school, so all the germs and everything
Oh
that
my
comes
God.
from the snivelly noses and everything is flooding us. So I'm glad that I had enough
In your
time for
next
the
book,
Dota.
for
Yeah.
your how to be good to an auntie book. Don't sneeze on your auntie. Don't
Mm.
wipe your face on anything your auntie is wearing. Like, we will do
Yep.
anything for these children, but do they have to sneeze on us in the process?
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, the
The
only time
lesson we all need.
yeah, but you know what? My nieces and nephews, I got a good immune system because of them. So
Yep.
I have to get like current vaccines just to hang out with the children in my life. I'm going to
Most
throw
definitely.
tetanus in there. All right. South of Sunrise Creative. Thank you so much for being a part of this. And this is available tomorrow on all podcast platforms. So if people don't want to stare at us, they can just listen to us.
Yeah, wonderful. Hit like and subscribe, right?
Yes. All right. Say that in Navajo. Is there a like and subscribe in your
Oh man,
language?
that's one of the things that we got to start labeling and coming up with words for all these digital words and never
Right.
thought of in the past. So
I love it. All right. Well, good luck with the kiddos and we'll talk to you soon.
yeah, one love. Thank you.
All right. Wow. Wow. Okay, I feel better. I mean, I don't know. I like learn from these guests, right? We're all in this journey. And part of too, what I try to bring to Red Hoop Talk is honest feelings. Like if something is frustrating, let's talk about it because I can't be the only perimenopausal middle-aged woman out there. Okay. So we're gonna get through this together. Um, Yes, South of Sunrise Creative. I haven't checked out his website, but I'm excited. So, thank you to the Association on American Indian Affairs for doing this podcast and letting us be together and interact with one another. So, I don't want to do the curse, okay, of the announcement, but next month, I feel like it's going to be a good one. But I don't want to jinx it by saying his or her name and or try I just don't want to curse it. So next month September will be a great one for the books and all over social medias you got the Association on American Indian Affairs, indian-affairs.org. It is I, Jennifer Robin. Thanks for being supportive today of me and coming out of my shame closet with my glasses because it has been much easier to read and stare at a screen for an hour and not start squinting with eyes watering and trying to hide under the desk of my own podcast. So, all right, Chihulele, I love y'all so hard. We'll see you back in September. Thanks for being part of the program.